Well, Senator Elizabeth Warren took center stage and was the center of attacks at the fourth Democratic presidential debate. 11 other candidates also participated last night in Westerville, Ohio. They addressed health care, the impeachment inquiry, and much more. But Senator Warren, the newest frontrunner, seemed to face most of the questions from other candidates on stage. She was repeatedly challenged on her health care plan and Medicare for all.
But you have not specified how you're going to pay for the most expensive plan, Medicare for all. Will you raise taxes on the middle class to pay for it, yes or no?
So I have made clear what my principles are here, and that is costs will go up for the wealthy and for big corporations, and for hardworking middle-class families, costs will go down.
Well, we heard it tonight, a yes or no question that didn't get a yes or no answer. Look, this is why people here in the Midwest are so frustrated with Washington in general and Capitol Hill in particular. Your signature, Senator, is to have a plan for everything, except this.
At least Bernie's being honest here and saying how he's going to pay for this and that taxes are going to go up. And I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but you have not said that. And I think we owe it to the American people to tell them where we're going to send the invoice.
I want to bring in Leslie Sanchez, Antjuan Seawright. Leslie's a CBS News contributor and a Republican strategist. Antjuan, a CBSN political contributor, Democratic strategist, and CEO of Blueprint Strategy. So, Antjuan, I want to start with you. I mean, we knew the incoming fire would be aimed at Warren. How'd she handle last night?
I don't know if she handled it as well as she probably should have. Conventional wisdom would have told her, to whom much is given, much is required of. We saw what happened with Joe Biden in the first debate. He took fire from many angles. She just wasn't prepared, and she specifically was not prepared to handle her signature piece of legislation that's Medicare for all. At the end of the day, there are three things that Democratic primary voters care about, particularly African-American voters: genuineness, authenticity, and honesty. I did not see those things from her plan, and she caught flack from the pragmatic voices on the stage, Mayor Pete and Senator Klobuchar, on the issue, and she refused to take a position on whether taxes, a very key word, would increase on the middle class.
But didn't her campaign prepare her? Didn't they know she's the surging front runner at this point in these early states, that they've got to be prepared for the other candidates to take aim?
I made this point yesterday. Elizabeth Warren is much like Bill Belichick. No matter what plays the other team is running, she's going to stick to her game plan to run her plays. As a result, to this point, she is yet to be defined in the way she was last night. And when she's attempted to be defined in the past, she's done a good job of just staying focused and just talking about the things that she's for and not rearing off to the left or to the right. And we saw that last night, but I think it came back to haunt her in a way because she fundamentally did not answer the question. As a result, the pile-on continued.
Leslie, we knew that foreign policy would weigh heavy on this, particularly with the situation in Syria. Warren said something about troop withdrawal in Syria. I want to play for you what she had to say. They had to actually issue a statement about this, but here's what she said.
I think that we ought to get out of the Middle East. I don't think we should have troops in the Middle East, but we have to do it the right way, the smart way. What this president has done is that he has sucked up to dictators. He has made impulsive decisions that often his own team doesn't understand. He has cut and run on our allies, and he has enriched himself at the expense of the United States of America.
I want to say Warren's campaign clarified that what she meant was referring to combat troops, not non-combat troops, talking about the withdrawal in Syria. But I mean, what do you make of that moment?
I think it's it harkens back to many of the messages of Barack Obama when he said he wanted to, reduce the U.S. influence, military influence abroad. You saw him starting to do some of that in 2006, and there was a big pushback, especially from the military, and kind of a bad response or feeling about it post the Obama administration. They think that he left a hollow army. They feel that he allowed for other insurgencies to grow in the Middle East, and because of that, we're still paying the price for that today. I think what you didn't hear was a very thought out, cogent, strategic approach to how the world is going to be in the next generation and how the U.S. needs to manage that capability and its influence. And nobody, even the president, is talking about that.
Antjuan, I want to play for you a little bit of what Joe Biden had to say. He didn't view her, really kind of brushed off her having this front runner role in this. Here's what Joe Biden had to say.
Well, it's kind of about time other people get questioned. You know, I don't think I haven't seen any polling showing that nationally, on average, that anybody else is a front runner. You guys keep talking about that. I think Elizabeth Warren's done very well. She's moved, but now that she has moved and is taken more seriously, people are going to ask her about, you know, a little candor here. You know, tell us how you're going to do what you say you're going to do.
Antjuan, you talked to Democratic sources. What are people saying inside the tent about Biden's performance last night?
He was measured, and he did not lose anything, but he did not make a big gain. So for Joe Biden, considering he is the front runner, that's a win. The difference, he said one thing right. While people have given Elizabeth Warren, to her credit, her rise in the polls, I think what Joe Biden is referring to is he knows where his bread is buttered, and that's with African-American voters. There's a different conversation when you talk about the first 3 states and you get to the most important state and what happens after that, the most important state being South Carolina, obviously, because that is where the first test case of African-American voters are. And so until there's a breakdown in the political nerve center, which is African-American voters, I don't see Joe Biden's front-runner status changing. Now, there's a different conversation when you talk about money, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point.
Let's actually talk about money now that you've raised it. You mentioned this.
I'm glad.
I mean,
Game on, Leslie.
As a matter of fact, I'm so glad you asked.
We're bringing it up because these Q3 numbers have come out.
Exactly.
And a lot of people are surprised at the lack of cash on hand for Biden.
Okay, there are 4 candidates with more cash on hand than Biden, which is astounding. Their numbers, well, if you talk about Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, just the war chest that they've combined together is collectively quite impressive. It shows they're going to have longevity through this. Their numbers are slowly increasing, at least Warren, in the polls. You're seeing consistency there. That's alarm bells for the Biden campaign. Also, their burn rate, you know, the amount of money they're moving through monthly on the Biden campaign. They're going to be slowly inking along as they get to South Carolina, hoping they get a resurgence. And the third part of that is a lot of hard money donors, which are the donors who've maxed out on what they can do legally into these campaigns. Those dollars have dried up. They've pretty much reached all they have in the Biden camp, so it's going to be hard to get new dollars coming in. What you see is the opposite with those other 4 candidates, even with Mayor Pete, you know, with Warren Sanders, certainly Kamala Harris is in there, is they're excited about it. They're getting new people to do small money donations. You're not seeing that. And again, it looks like 2016, that establishment candidate that the party is insisting on moving along because they know what Antjuan says, he can do better in those Rust Belt states, working class states, more than the extreme progressive message. But they're going to have to bolster him up and push him over the finish line if he's going to be the nominee.
I think Leslie is right about this. Look, Warren, Sanders, Buttigieg in particular have done an excellent job of finagling and cuddling small donors to donate to their campaign in small amounts, almost like Barack Obama did in 2008. The Biden fundraising model has been traditional, fly in big money events here and there. If you look at the spending report, it indicates that a lot of the burn rate was going to fundraisers to raise money. I think that's a problem for the front runner. The other thing, and I'm being very objective as a Democrat for a second, like when I think about what the other side is doing, what Trump is doing and the money he's raising with the committee and what we're doing now with our combined candidates, taking out our committees, it's a little bit concerning for me, particularly when we have candidates in the presidential primary who have this idea of no big money dinners, no fun, you know, all these nuances about what money we're going to take and not take. It's a little bit concerning because we all know there are several things it takes to win a campaign: money, movement, momentum, and man and woman power. And if we don't have those things, we will not win next year.
What's the biggest liability right now for the entire Democratic field right now when you're talking about trying to beat Donald Trump next year?
Trying to figure out who we are. We're in this battle for whether we're going to be a center-left party or a progressive party. I think what comes along with that, the top of the ticket will have some responsibility for the down portion of the ticket, meaning i.e. holding the Congress, winning some state legislative seats, governor's races, and trying to compete for U.S. Senate seats. We have to figure out what that looks like, because if the top of the ticket does not reflect the needs of the bottom of the ticket, then we're going to have a long-term problem in this party for generations, because this is, for the first time in my lifetime, a generational election.
And it puts the House back in play for Republicans, because when Trump comes out and you have the Trump factor, like him or dislike him, it's going to move across the country in those red states and really galvanize and make some of those competitive, races that were competitive in 2018, they would not be competitive in 2020. When he's at the top of the ticket, it's a game changer.
All right, Leslie Sanchez, Antjuan Seawright, I hope you guys get some rest. I know it's been a long 24 hours for both of you. Thank you very much for staying and joining us.